Today we would be talking about affective processes. As defined by Ising, emotion is a complex state involving heightened perception of an object or situation, widespread bodily changes, an appraisal of felt attraction or repulsion, and behavior organized towards approach or withdrawal. So, that way when you look at the emotion, as this definition suggests, that emotions are multifaceted processes which involves certain set of physiological reactions, behavioral reactions, expressive reactions and subjective experiences. Physiological reactions, for example, we can take increase or decrease in the rate of respiration. Behavioral reactions could be approach or avoidance reactions. For example, when you like something, when you are happy about something, you tend to approach the object, whereas when you are afraid of something, the fear makes you avoid that very situation, that very object of danger. These are behavioral reactions. Expressive reactions are just you put a smile on your face or you make a frowning face. So, smile or frowning would be the expressive reaction, whereas the subjective experience is the feeling component, such as feeling of joy. Emotional processes primarily involves activation of the nervous system. Now, nervous system here we refer to both the central nervous system as well as the autonomic nervous system. Actions depicted on face, body and voices. So, there are certain changes at the level of the face, much later we will come towards it. There are certain postural adjustment that one makes during the state of emotion, and of course, there are changes in the voice pattern. There are of course, psychological processes such as the whole component of feeling, and this entire emotional processes will always involve interaction with the environment, because the stimulus that one gets, something that induces a particular emotion in an individual, that stimulus will always be present in the environment, and therefore, interaction with the environment is a must. First, we come to the basic theories of emotion. You can primarily classify them as the biological theories of emotion and the cognitive theories of emotions. And of course, we would go a little beyond it, and we would come across couple of more theories of emotions. James Lange's theory is the oldest theory of emotion, that was given in 1884. Then came the Cannon-Bard theory given in 1915. Thereafter, the central motive theory given in 1969. These three primarily constitutes the biological theories of emotion. Then we have Sacher-Singer's theory given in 1962 and the Lazarus viewpoint that was given in 1991. These two theories can be clubbed together as cognitive theories of emotion. Three other theories that we would be discussing during our discussion on affective processes are the theories given by Plutchik in 1970, Izard's theory given in 1972 and Paul Ekman's theory given in 1972. Now, James Lange primarily did not give their theory together. William James was an American psychologist, whereas Carl Lange was a Danish psychologist, and both of them proposed by and large the same thing. These proposals came at around the same time, and therefore, later on the academic world said that fine, this theory would be called as the James Lange theory, although this work was not done in collaboration. James said that we feel sorry because we cry, angry because we strike, and afraid because we tremble. So, we can understand James Lange theory by this chart, that you have a perception of emotion arousing situation in the environment. Basically, the stimulus is present in the environment and then you perceive the emotion. So, arousing situation is present in the environment, that leads to reaction to the situation, and here reaction basically means that there are a specific set of bodily activities that are primarily triggered because of the situation that is present in the environment, and then this leads to perception of bodily activity resulting into emotional experiences. What did you see here? Primarily, this man was afraid of the dog. not because there was a feeling of emotion. It was not that this boy was afraid of the dog. The fear component, according to James Lange theory, came simply because this boy started coming forward with a reaction to the situation. The dog broke the chain, the dog started chasing this boy, the boy started running, and when the boy was running, he started interpreting his own feeling, his own bodily reaction, and the bodily activity that he is running induces the feeling that you are afraid of the dog. So, fear gets induced because of the action. This is what James Lange theory suggests. James further said that the bodily changes following directly the perception of an exciting fact and that are feeling of the same changes as they occur in the emotion. So, bodily sensations occur prior to emotional feelings and not the other way around. The common perception could be that fine, we have the emotional feeling, and feeling of the emotion leads to a sensation in the body. According to James, that no, we first have the bodily sensations, and these bodily sensations finally lead to emotional feelings. Thereafter came the Cannon-Bard theory. Cannon-Bard theory made a little amendment in this process, the explanation given by James Lange, and they said that we first have the arousing situation in the environment. This leads to pattern of activity produced in the lower brain areas such as hypothalamus. You can see hypothalamus here in red. So, you have a situation in the environment, and this leads to primarily activation of certain lower brain areas, and this will simultaneously lead to perception of brain activities in the cortex, so that the emotion is felt, and at the same time emotion expression through pattern of bodily activities. Now, let us replay what we saw right now, the dog chasing the boy. Just replay this. Now, what did you see? Still the dog seems to be the object of fear. Let us proceed ahead. What it primarily tries to say is that you have a common element in the environment. Now, dog is the common object in the environment. The pattern of activity that has taken place in the brain of these two individuals, the first set where the boy was running with a feel that fine the dog is chasing him and he could be bitten, whereas in the other case again it was a stranger, he was not the master of the dog, but still the approach was full of love. Now, how you process the same object, how your brain does so, will finally decide what emotion you feel. In the first case, you show a bodily reaction, you run away from the object, and this perception and this analysis that fine this is the action, this is the object, this leads you to a conclusion that fine I am afraid, you feel the emotion. Whereas, in the other case you feel, oh great, this is this dog is so attractive. Now, the way your brain processes the information according to Cannon-Bard theory, this will decide how you feel the emotion, and the emotion that you express is also represented through your bodily activities. In one case you run away, in the other case you start patting the dog. The third theory is called the central motive state theory, or popularly called as the CMS theory, given by Bindra in 1969, which integrates emotion and the motivational states. This theory says that the perception of environment and physiological actions jointly affect a common set of neurons, and these neural firings are mediated by the central motive state. These firings create autonomic discharges, postural adjustment and organized motor output. Now, when you look at this theory, instead of simply saying that fine there is an object in the environment, there is a situation in the environment, you react to it bodily, then you analyze how your body has reacted, and this would finally lead to the feeling of the emotion, or brain processing these things present in the external environment, and the brain activity finally parallelly making you experience the emotion as well as make higher cortical analysis of the thing. Here it says that fine you basically collate these two things. So, what happens in the CMS theory, that you have a neural firing, the neural firings are mediated by the central motive state, and autonomic discharges, postural adjustments and organized motor outputs will finally be generated because of these neural firings. Now, Candland later on said that CMS is not an autonomous process of the external conditions, and therefore, it can be altered by experiences, but also has inherited components, and therefore, one can make out that the central motive state is actually something that can be classically conditioned. You have already come to know the classical conditioned behavior when you are going through learning. Now, this means that one can be trained to react in a certain manner to a given stimuli. This means that unlike the previous two theories, where you have the stimulus in the environment, you bodily react to it and then you understand what you feel, or your brain processes the information and parallelly these two things happen. In this case, what happens is that if CMS can be classically conditioned, this primarily means that you can train somebody that in the presence of this type of a stimulus, you can actually or you should actually react this way. We now come to the cognitive theories of emotion, and first we come across the Schachter-Singer's theory. It is called the theory of cognitive appraisal, which says that the perception of emotion comprises of physiological arousal as well as labeling of that emotional arousal. So, the physical arousal provides the primary strength to perceive an emotion. You can again understand Schachter-Singer's theory using this model, that you have the arousal situation in the environment, and this leads to a generalized bodily arousal and its perception. So, actually the stimulus is present in the environment, this leads to a generalized bodily arousal and the perception of this arousal, which finally will lead to an interpretation of reasons for the generalized arousal state. Now, what happens? You have the stimuli in the environment, you have a generalized body arousal because of that, you perceive it and then you interpret, you try to attach a reason to it, why am I having such bodily arousals. And then the moment you start interpreting and giving reasons to this generalized arousal state, you will finally have the reasons that determine feeling of an emotion, and this is how you start feeling an emotion. So, actually what they say is that unless you start attaching a meaning to what you have perceived, the type of bodily reactions you have given, so unless this cognitive processing is done, you do not experience an emotion. For instance, if an attendant comes to a clinic, you are visiting a dentist clinic and you are actually accompanying a patient. For example, I have pain in my teeth, you accompany me to the dentist clinic. Now, I might have a fear, what type of painful experience I would have on the dentist chair, but then you are simply accompanying me, and therefore, you have a normal breathing and heartbeat. Now, you can intellectually realize my fear, and even though you are able to do so, you cannot experience the fear or pain that I am experiencing, and this is because you have less arousal level. My arousal level is high because I know that finally I have to be there on the dentist chair, whereas you do not have this, and that is the reason why Schachter's theory says that fine, even though you can intellectually realize my fear, okay, you cannot experience it simply because even though you are cognitively trying to think so, your level of arousal is reduced. Now, arousal devoid of emotional leveling inhibits perception of emotion. You can take an example. A player with a high level of physiological arousal during the game perceives little or no emotion, and this is because the arousal is primarily because of non-emotional reasons. Take for example, you have a set of players in a cricket field. Now, these players might have a high level of physiological arousal, but then you do not feel the emotion, you just feel the arousal, simply because you have a non-emotional reason for this arousal. This is what this theory says. So, Sassner's theory proposes that physiological arousal without apparent leveling stimulates a need for cognitive leveling, and this makes the individual move towards experiencing the emotion. Compared to all other theories that we have discussed till now, this theory overwhelmingly supports the significance of cognitive factors in emotional processes. This theory considers different emotions as diverse cognition of the same arousal, and this is in contrast with other theories. Other theories have considered different physiological concomitants for diverse emotion, whereas the cognitive appraisal theory does not do so. What it says is that fine, you could have different emotions are actually the diverse cognition of the same arousal. One of the criticism for Sassner's theory is on methodological ground that administration of epinephrine for generating arousal was used, and therefore, successful replication of finding with ephedrine instead of epinephrine has been tried, and this primarily becomes one of the criticism, because methodologically speaking you induce a particular chemical to increase the level of arousal, and if this can be replaced, then how is it that fine you have the same state of arousal, but because of two different reasons. At one stage, importance has been given to cognitive appraisal and reasoning. On the other, the level of arousal is attained through injecting chemicals. So, the obvious question that comes to our mind is whether emotion was chemically determined or was it the outcome of cognitive appraisal. We come to another theory, Arnold's theory. Magda Arnold's theory considers experience, action and expression of emotion, and she refers to intuitive and reflective appraisals. Remember, right now we have discussed cognitive appraisals. What Magda Arnold says is that fine, intuitive and reflective appraisals are important. According to her, the felt tendency towards anything intuitively appraised as good or beneficial, or away from anything intuitively appraised as bad, harmful, this attraction or aversion is accompanied by a pattern of physiological changes organized towards approach or withdrawal. The patterns differ for different emotions. According to her, appraisals are supposedly direct, immediate, non-reflective, non-intellectual, automatic, instinctive and intuitive, and these are sense judgments. Again, I am referring to her. She says that we evaluate something as dangerous and feel fear, as annoying and feel anger, although unintended and often unwanted, emotion is still something we have initiated. Hence, we are active in emotion, not passive. We are the actor, the agent. This theory can help develop models for explaining the role of moral judgments in appraising emotions, and Richard Lazarus popularized the appraisal approach to emotion, and right now we will come to Lazarus theory, where he says that emotional responses are outcome of internal and situational appraisal processes, and these processes are actually, he says that there are three possible outcomes. One, the biological urge to act, the subjective affect and the physiological responses. Now, emotions at the same time induce coping activities also. He says that fine, we can have problem focused coping or we can have emotion focused coping. In problem focused coping, the efforts are designed to overcome or reduce effect of an undesirable situation, whereas in the case of emotion focused coping, the cognitive strategies are used to master, reduce or tolerate an undesirable situation. In 1970, Plutchik came forward in a big way, and what he did was that he classified all emotions into 8 basic emotions, or he later on even came forward with the combinations, and then he started talking about relationships between emotions. Plutchik talks about joy, trust, fear, surprise, sadness, disgust, anger and anticipation. These are the 8 basic emotions that Plutchik has talked about. Now, these emotions are multidimensional, and the dimensions are intensity, similarity and polarity. Plutchik arranged the primary emotions, the 8 emotions that we have seen, in a circle, and then the derived emotion in the third dimension based on intensity. There are mixed support for this emotion solid. You can see the ring of 8 basic emotions right here. We had just talked about them. According to Plutchik, the variation in intensity can give birth to another experience. For example, fear, it intensifies and then can become terror, and if it loses a bit of its intensity, it becomes apprehension. Similarly, added intensity converts surprise to amazement, whereas loss of intensity changes it to distraction. Again, if you look at the other one, conversions take place in other basic emotions also. Sadness converts to grief and disapproval, disgust to loathing and boredom, anger to rage and annoyance, anticipation to vigilance and interest, joy to serenity and trust to admiration and acceptance. According to Plutchik, these basic emotions can combine to give another sense of feelings. These combinations are called dyads. For example, when joy combines with anticipation, optimism is born. When trust combines with fear, submission evolves, and so forth. We will come to them little later. According to Plutchik, joy and trust can combine to generate love. Trust and fear combine to generate submission. Fear and surprise combine to generate alarm. These 3 are primary dyads and are often felt. Now, joy can combine with fear to generate guilt. Trust can combine with surprise to generate curiosity, and fear can combine with sadness to generate despair. These are secondary dyads and are sometimes felt. Joy can also combine with surprise to generate delight, trust with sadness to generate sentimentality, and fear with disgust to generate shame. These are tertiary dyads and are seldom experienced. One could think of opposite emotions combining together, but these would lead to conflicts. Let us now look at other primary dyads. Surprise and sadness combine to generate disappointment. Sadness and disgust combine to generate remorse. Disgust and anger combine to generate contempt. Anger and anticipation combine to generate aggression, and anticipation and joy combine to generate optimism. Let us now look at other secondary dyads. Sadness and anger combine to generate envy. Disgust and anticipation combine to generate cynicism. Anger and joy combine to generate pride, and anticipation and trust combine to generate fatalism. Let us now look at other tertiary dyads. Surprise and anger combine to generate outrage. Sadness and anticipation combine to generate pessimism. Disgust and joy combine to generate morbidness. Anger and trust combine to generate dominance, and anticipation and fear combine to generate anxiety. Another example of opposite emotions combining together is surprise and anticipation. As you know, these generates conflicts. Plutchik has beautifully explained how the whole chain of events is completed during any emotional state. We have an event that provides a stimulus. This is cognitively appraised. This leads to some subjective reaction. It is manifested in some form of behavioral reaction, and finally, the function is accomplished. You can see certain stimulus on the screen and see this full chain. Now, here we are going to look at the stimulus events, the cognitive appraisal, the subjective reaction, the behavioral reaction and the function. Now, gain of valued objects is the stimulus event. You have to possess it. This is the cognitive appraisal. You have the subjective reaction, you have the joy, you retain or repeat it. that is your behavioral reaction, and finally, you perform a function, that is you gain the resource. Now, you are member of one group, you consider yourself to be a friend, this is a cognitive appraisal. You have trust towards your group members, this is your subjective reaction. You groom your behavior accordingly, that is your behavioral reaction, and the function that it performs is the mutual support. You support your members and your team members, they support you. Now, you have threat, that is the stimulus event. You cognitively appraise that you are in a situation of danger. The subjective reaction is that of fear, escape is the behavioral reaction, and then the function that you perform is that fine you look for safer options, you look towards safety. Now, you have an unexpected event, you just think what is it, this is the cognitive appraisal. The subjective reaction, you are surprised, the behavioral reaction, you stop, and then you gain time to orient yourself, this is the function that you perform. You have loss of a valued object, you have a sense of abandonment, this is your cognitive appraisal, you feel sad, this is your subjective reaction, you cry because of that feeling, that is the behavioral reaction, and then reattach to loss or object, this is the function that you perform. You have an unpalatable object, and then the cognitive appraisal, you think it could be poison, you are disgusted, this is the subjective reaction, you vomit, that is the behavioral reaction, and this is how the poison gets ejected, this is the function that it performs. Now, you have an obstacle, cognitively you appraise that fine he or she is my enemy, the subjective reaction you feel anger, the behavioral reaction you attack, and this is how you destroy obstacles, this is the function that it performs. So, basically when you look at these colored objects, the subjective reactions, you have joy, trust, fear, surprise, sadness, disgust and anger, and these are considered to be the emotions. Now, you have new territory, you examine them, because you examine them, what is a part of your cognitive appraisal, you have a subjective reaction, you have a feeling of anticipation, then finally, you go for a behavioral reaction, you map them, and then finally, you know the territory, you have the knowledge of the territory, this is the function that it performs. Right now, we were talking about the Plutchik's theory, where we talked about the combination of two of the basic emotions. Look at this news item.
Trying to be brave, perhaps not even completely understanding what he's saying or doing.
मेरा भैया भाई स्कूल में पढ़ता था क्लास 8 एनएस रोनाल्डो हुआ उसको घर पहुंचा दीजिए मेरे पापा का डेथ हो गया एनएस रोनाल्डो हुआ मेरा भैया का
Asking his brother's school to send him home because their father is dead, murdered. He tries to sit by his mother, inconsolable in her grief. The same Sunita Induvar who never begged nor pleaded, even though her husband was in grave danger.
मेरे पति के बिना कोई साथ से मैंने लोग छोड़ दिए मेरे दोस्त के साथ किसी मैंने खूंखार उग्रवादियों को तो मैंने कंपेयर मेरे ख्याल से मैंने करना नहीं चाहिए.
And even today, as she cries for a husband that no one can bring back, there is no anger, just a sense of complete loss. Her son best sums up Sunita's patriotism, courage and strength.
What you saw actually till now is a son who is bereaving the death of his father. The father was assassinated, and see the expression on his face and the words that he speaks. Primarily, you will get what Plutchik was trying to say, that you can still have the combination of two of the primary emotions. In 1972, Izard came forward with a proposal that there are 9 innate and unique emotions that produce the main human motivational system. All of them are discrete because of the facial and the physiological activities. Now, remember one thing, right now we had discussed the Plutchik's theory where he was talking about the 8 basic emotions. Now, here Izard says that we have 9 innate and unique emotions. So, you find the disagreement between the two. According to Izard, interest, enjoyment, surprise, distress, disgust, anger, shame, fear and contempt. These are the 9 basic emotions. I repeat it once again. He said that we have interest, enjoyment, surprise, distress, disgust, anger, shame, fear and contempt, and these are the 9 basic emotions. According to Izard, emotion is activated by 3 types of processes: person environment interactions and 5 type of intra individual processes. Now, we first come to the 3 person environment interactions. Primarily he said that you have obtained perception, the demanded perception and the spontaneous perception, and this actually interacts with the person environment interactions. The intra individual processes according to him are memory, imagination, proprioception, some endocrine and autonomic activity, and finally, the spontaneous activity. He says that memory, it can be obtained, demanded or spontaneous in nature. Then you have your imagination, the proprioception of facial, postural and other motor activities, endocrine and other autonomic activities, and finally, spontaneous activity of neuromuscular systems. So, these are the intra individual processes that has to do with emotional experiences. Now, if you just make a comparison between the theories that we have talked about till now, we talked about Arnold, Izard, Plutchik and Saster-Singer's viewpoint. Now, Arnold theory says that intense, immediate appraisal and evaluation is experienced as an emotion. Izard theory says that emotion is a subsystem of personality comprising of 9 innate emotions. Plutchik says that both innate and learned drive components are involved in emotion, and according to Saster, different emotions are diverse cognition of the same arousal. Till now we have been talking about now the basic emotions, the composite emotion. We have talked about various theories of emotion at great length. It is time for us where we talk about the ancient Indian perspective on emotions. It is interesting to find that when the 3rd edition of the book The Psychology of Emotion by Strongman came in 1987, that book counted over 30 different theories of emotion. 9 years later, the 4th edition of this book came, and by that time, means within the span of 9 years, the total count of theories of emotion went from 30 to 150. So, this is the exponential growth in terms of explaining human emotions. So, that is the very interesting part of it. But what is very interesting is that you largely find the Western perspective being discussed in almost all the books. Today, it is important for us to also understand what the Natya Shastra, the classic literature in India by Bharat, the ancient classic work by this very great man, what it has to say about emotions. Interestingly, we have been talking about the basic emotions, and we have come to a point where we said that fine, we have the 6 basic emotions. That was the final conclusion that we had drawn. Natya Shastra by Bharat, it identifies 8 major and 33 minor emotions. Remember that it does not mention that basic and composite emotion, but it mentions major and minor emotions, and the 8 major emotions talked about are rati, that is the erotic feeling; hasya, that is the mirtha; shoka, sorrow; krodha, that is anger; utsaha, that is energy; bhaya, fear; jugupsa, disgust, and then vishmaya, that is astonishment. So, these were the 8 major emotions that Natya Shastra talks about. Although Bharat suggested only 8 aesthetic moods, scholars have later on added quietude, that is the Shanta Bhav, as the 9th rasa. And it is very interesting to see that you will find the whole lot of description of these rasas in the ancient Indian literature. You will find it in dramatics, you will find it in various spheres. Okay. And it is important for the students of psychology to understand that although we have been largely banking and deriving information based on the outcomes of Western researchers, okay, we have a great theory in our own country. What is very interesting here is, and a point of major distinction between the Western proposition and this ancient Indian perspective, that these major emotions can be equated with the basic emotions, and it refers, basically it has been referred to in the Natya Shastra as a sthayi bhav. Sthayi is something stable, and it is called a sthayi bhav, or it is a major emotion, or according to our Western parameters terminology, it is the basic emotion, because they sustain for relatively more time than the minor emotions. So, the duration of the minor emotions will be much less compared to these major emotions, and they are major or basic emotions, okay, and thereby they are sthayi bhavas, because they are common to humans and animals too. Remember that the type of theories and the descriptions that we have seen till now coming from largely from the Western world, okay, those were exclusively referring to human emotions, and here you find that the ancient Indian perspective also incorporates the emotions displayed by animals. So, that is a major point of distinction. And although these are some interesting things, you find that there are some overlaps. Okay. This list of major emotions does not coincide with the basic emotions suggested by contemporary psychologists. Okay. There are several things here that you find incorporated in the list of 8 major and 33 minor emotions. Okay. That type of exclusive classification or sub classification we do not find in the theories that we have discussed till now. We come to Paul Ekman's proposal now. Paul Ekman performed cross cultural research basically on the facial expression on the Dani and the 4 tribesmen of Papua New Guinea. Now, these 4 tribesmen and the Dani tribesmen, they are isolated and still they have the Stone Age culture. He concluded that the facial expression of some basic emotion is innate, and finally, he came forward with 6 basic emotions: happiness, sadness, anger, fear, disgust and surprise. The available literature in psychology suggests universality of at least 6 basic emotions, that are happiness, sadness, fear, anger, surprise and disgust. The fundamental characteristics that are different from other emotions and that make these emotions as basic emotions. A specific antecedent events bringing about a given emotion in everybody. For example, goal obstacle always generates anger, and this is true for all human beings irrespective of the age and irrespective of the culture. Each basic emotion elicits organized set of responses in each person. For example, heartbeat and blood flow increases in the state of anger, and this will happen with me, it will happen with you, it will happen with everybody. As a consequence, disproportionately high amount of blood goes to one's hand, thus preparing a person to fight. Now, the fact that there is an organized set of response which has led to increase in the heartbeat, in the blood flow in the given state of anger, the extra blood also goes to my hand and this prepares me to fight against the person. Now, irrespective of whether one actually engages in a real fight or not, emotion prepares the body for it. Each basic emotion is distinctly expressed on the face, and these expressions are universal. You can see the facial expression of 6 basic emotions in this image. Irrespective of culture, facial expressions are universally recognized, and this was endorsed by Izard also, and it has been endorsed by several others. The evidence for universality of emotion came forward from the cross cultural studies of recognition of emotions. In an extensive study done by Izard in 1971, what was found was that Americans and Europeans, they correctly identified 75 to 83%, Japanese 65% and African 50% of facial photographs shown to them. In a recent times, attempts have been made to do the same exercise, that is classification of emotion using the structural equation modeling. For instance, Diner Smith and Fujita and Power in 2006, these are 2 different studies. They have come forward with categories of emotions based on purely structural equation modeling. Some view positive negative emotion as separate domains, whereas some other consider them as correlated or bipolar domains. Beside positive negative dimension, emotion has also been classified in terms of motoric direction and arousal. For instance, according to the valency hypothesis, we classify basic emotions as positive and negative. Happiness, for instance, is a positive emotion, while disgust is a negative emotion. If you classify basic emotion with respect to motoric direction, then you look at them as approach and withdrawal emotions. Happiness, for example, is an approach emotion, whereas fear is a withdrawal emotion. In terms of arousal level, few emotions such as happiness once again involves greater degree of arousal, whereas few others such as sadness involves low arousal level. It is also important to note that the positive emotions are processed by the left hemisphere, while the right hemisphere processes the negative emotions, and the approach emotions are controlled by the left hemisphere, whereas the withdrawal emotions are mediated by the right hemisphere. Till now we have been talking about basic emotions, the theories of emotion. We came forward to facial expression of emotion, talking about how these basic emotion also represents the universality in facial expression. Tomorrow when we meet, we will be talking about the physiological dimension attached to emotion. We would be talking about activation of emotion. We have talked about several concepts at length, and this is time for us to recapitulate.